It's a Wonderful Night for a Moondance by Ambion. Candles flickered, the books were closed for the night, the heart glowed with the burning of coals, and Moondancer shivered in sensual ecstasy. She reveled in the tension and release of pleasure through her muscles, down her legs and making her breathing breathless. Her belly quivered and she jutted her hips even further forward. The tongue between her legs was heavenly, and Moondancer wrapped her hooves in the soft, flowing mane of the one surfacing her, pushing and pulling as she desired. Twilight Sparkle planted kisses along her and Moondancer moaned. She laughed under her breath, then, dragging Twilight's mane, brought her eyes up to meet hers. Her muzzle was wet, her chin and cheeks were glazed. The alicorn chewed and licked her lips in a vain bid to dry them. Moondancer tightened her haunches, locking her legs round the princess's neck. The unicorn tossed her head back and chuckled, keeping Twilight's mane tightly bound. Moondancer stroked Twilight Sparkle's head. "So, you've never done this before?" she asked. Before she allowed Twilight the chance to reply, she pushed Twilight's head down once more. The princess's sucking lips and lapping tongue made Moondancer's hips roll in sensual throes. When she finally gave Twilight slack to breathe, she huffed and gasped. "No, never. I said that. I've never done anything like this before." Moondancer gestured for Twilight to use her hoof for a time. The princess was breathy and needed air. She stared meaningfully and was pleased when Twilight scooted her back legs forward, raising her behind prominently and putting herself in reach of her other hoof. Moondancer let her eyes roll and breath catch as she reveled, listening to the wet twin sounds of Twilight's efforts. "Not even for yourself?" Moondancer was met with a pouty look, as if to ask, "Are you serious?" There was a pause in the delightful sounds of hooves, wetness, and touch. "That doesn't count," the princess said politely. "Not like this." "Oh, but isn't it so much better like this?" Moondancer flicked Twilight's pert ears playfully, then slapped them gently in a mock imitation of violence. "You'll get a turn," she promised. Twilight grumbled, so Moondancer forced her head down again. Was the response Moondancer then got. Minutes passed and Moondancer came a little closer to suffocating Twilight Sparkle. When next she breathed, the alicorn gasped and spoke in a raspy manner. "Are you close?" she asked. "Are you getting close?" "A little. It doesn't do you any favors, though, when you stop. What I don't understand is, how is this happening?" There were a few blissful moments without words, when Twilight next raised her head. Shimmering wet threads were strung on her lips. "I came over to visit. We were catching up. Visiting." Moondancer fondled the princess's perky ears. She loved their velvety softness. She coaxed Twilight Sparkle's head down and down further. "Don't worry," she cooed. "Enjoy this. Ah, sweet contact." Twilight Sparkle moaned and laughed under her breath. Moondancer felt every single hot breath wash over her. "That I can do," chuckled the princess. Moondancer felt the quivers of that laughter too. It felt good. Moondancer was close now, close enough that her composure was melting around the edges. The Princess Twilight Sparkle spoke with such a sultry, teasing tone that it only took Moondancer that much closer. "We were discussing our studies. You offered me wine, you lit candles, and now this. You used magic on me, didn't you?" Moondancer gasped and spasmed. She wrapped Twilight's mane tighter in her hooves and pulled hard enough that it surely had to hurt the princess. But she wasn't stopping. Moondancer was inclined to believe Twilight Sparkle's claims to innocence. She was a famously quick study. Twilight Sparkle pursed her lips around Moondancer's bead. She raked it with her teeth, lovingly, painfully, mockingly. They were all facets of a wider, overpowering sensation. Moondancer scraped together what resolve she still possessed and fought to ride it out. The princess's hooves were strong. She eased them up Moondancer's thighs, caressing them as she went. Then Twilight Sparkle pried them farther apart. "Did you use magic on me?" Moondancer gasped. She was coming very close. Twilight's tongue was an unrelenting masterstroke on Moondancer's hot and quivering body. The moment of her speech were only a cruel, teasing respite of the coming crash Moondancer faced. "I might not be happy when the spell wears off," mused Twilight salaciously. "You're good, but we both knew that." Twilight Sparkle unfolded the petals of Moondancer and dipped her tongue in the nectar, making the unicorn moan and shake. "If you're going to change a pony's mood and behavior," she drew out the moment with 3 long, sensual licks, "that it helps to account for their higher brain functions too. Otherwise..." Moondancer was jarred as her thighs were parted wider. The princess pinned her legs down with surprising strength and crawled, cat-like, up over her. A clever pony just might spot the incongruities in their own behavior. A drunk pony can still realize they are drunk, after all. Same with magical influences. Twilight Sparkle kissed Moondancer. There was tongue. The unicorn was helpless but to taste herself on that hot and wet intrusion. "Of course, you wouldn't really think it was all that acceptable to cast a spell like that on another pony, would you? Maybe I am just, cutting loose. Maybe I, Twilight Sparkle, blushing virgin, am just so done with that. Or you, Moondancer." There were teeth in Twilight's smile. Moondancer bit down her lips and, helpless but to lock her eyes with those of Twilight's, fought against the sensations of sheer pleasure the alicorn's hoof unmercifully gave her. "Have said something loose entirely greater than you were prepared to deal with. So, Moondancer." Twilight purred her name. She tried not to break then and there. "Which is it?" "It was a very good bottle of wine." Twilight Sparkle's wings flared. She paused a moment, giving Moondancer a vital second to fall back from the absolute verge. The princess grinned and, laughing, put newfound force into her hoof's efforts. "You cheeky bitch! You really did use magic on me." Twilight dove. She sucked and nibbled the unicorn's lips. "I don't even care to hear it. You did it. Here we are. Face the consequences." Moondancer's hoof was picked up. She soon found it pushed with earnest somewhere warm, somewhere wet. It was good. Oh, so good. Moondancer worked her hoof, and Twilight Sparkle rocked her hips, reciprocating in earnest. But Moondancer was so much farther along the path, and the alicorn so much more in control now. The princess's hoof was still on her, and when Twilight kissed her with an almost violent degree of force, pushed herself onto her, biting her lips, before releasing her, only to go down again. Moondancer knew it as a matter of truth when she wasn't going to come through the next few moments in one piece. Her time, simply, had come. By a princess's decree, no less. Twilight slurped in an almost gross manner down between Moondancer's legs. The crudeness of it shocked her. She could feel the rivulets running down her, some of herself, some of Twilight, hot and slick, then cooling and marring the bedding they shared beneath them. The princess's voice was mocking, but only drove Moondancer's experience to greater heights for it. "Do you feel like confessing?" she asked. "This is what you wanted, after all." Twilight licked and slurped and teased. Moondance was so close. The frustration was driving her to madness. She needed the release. She needed the end. Actions and reactions, choices and responsibilities, they almost stopped existing for her entirely in that moment of fervent passion. Moondancer moaned and moaned. She opened her eyes and there were the princess's own, piercing her with an almost malevolent, gleeful fixity. "I want you to break, Moondancer. Break for me." That did it. What hit her hard. Moondancer tried to cry out. She could not. But the princess's hoof pressed down on her mouth and made screaming impossible. She bucked and thrashed, but Twilight Sparkle wasn't shaken from her. She didn't even stop rubbing her. Forget what had come before. The hypersensitive overstimulation was an all-new level of maddening. And Moondancer couldn't only struggle in vain. Eventually, crashing and broken, Moondancer was given leeway to breathe. She rasped the air greedily, all former traces of composure shattered like so much ice. Her tongue and eyes lolled. She could barely rally the conscious thought to move them, and every single one of Twilight's slow, sensuous stroke on her was too much to bear. Was that punishment or reward?" she asked. Twilight moaned. It became laughter, low and dark. "I haven't decided yet." She blinked and spoke in a parody of innocence. "You don't think that's it, do you? This is not over, Moondancer. Not a long way." Moving confidently, the princess repositioned herself. Moondancer, giggling and tearing up, found herself with a uniquely lovely view dominating her perspective. The air was rife with the smell of sex, and when Twilight pushed herself down forcefully onto Moondancer's muzzle, air stopped being an option. Twilight Sparkle chuckled darkly. "You have so much explaining to do tomorrow. I hope you realize your performance between now and then might be a mitigating factor. Maybe." Moondancer rallied what wits and sensibility she had left, grabbed readily onto the beautiful round purple ass, smothering her, and, stealing the odd breath here and there through her nose, dedicated herself to the thorough and absolute satisfaction of the princess's swollen, dripping, heated, throbbing cunt. Moondancer could only moan as she exerted herself. Twilight Sparkle sighed with pleasure. Her hooves, and soon her mouth, were not idle, not in the slightest. She made sure that they made it difficult, very difficult, for her master, come slave, to concentrate. That's better. Twilight pushed her lush ass more completely onto Moondancer's face, making things better still. It was going to be an exhaustive night for the unicorn. Twilight Sparkle would see to that.